Today I'm going to teach you how to build AI agents from start to finish in N8N. We're going to start with the basics and then work our way up to some of the more advanced techniques. Before we start jumping in and learning how to build this, we need to understand what it is and why it's important first. So what are agentic systems? Agentic systems are environments built up of agents and workflows. So what are these agents and workflows? Workflows are automations or systems where the output is predefined by the large language model and other tools. You can think of a workflow like a post-product purchase automation. When someone purchases a product, maybe you create a workflow automation that sends them an email with their order details. That's a workflow. Now, agents, on the other hand, work a little bit differently. These are automations or systems where the large language model dynamically decides which tools and output is necessary. So you can think of this like a customer support agent that has access to specific tools. Maybe these tools could be things like creating support tickets, pulling in order history, or even issuing refunds. You basically give the large language model or the agent access to use those tools. If that conversation ever comes up, they can decide which one is best used for that scenario. So there's no one way this automation could go. The agent has to decide which tools to use in order to accomplish requests made by a user. So visually, this would be a workflow, right? You have an input, whether it be from a user on a schedule, from a certain application, and then that input goes through an automation workflow and gets you a consistent output. Now, the data could be changing in the output, but you know that the output is going to go to the same spot. You know where it's going to go because you've predefined it within building your automation. Well, the agent example looks a little different. So here, the large language model would be receiving an input. And this large language model, depending on the input, has a couple of tools or multiple different tools that it can use in order to reach a dynamic output. So an agent is like a large language model with tools. And we can even put agents nested within other agents so that one agent can call another agent, which has access to a certain amount of tools as well. And we're going to get into that concept a little bit later in the video, but it was important to understand what are agentic systems and to visually see it for yourself. Now, if you enjoy this video and you want to keep building automations and agents with us, then I recommend joining our community for AI Foundations. We have this community hosted on the school platform, and in this community, we focus on the 3 C's. Number 1, courses. Number 2, calls. And number 3, saving the best for last, community. The people that make up this community are better than any content within. But let me tell you, if you want to stay ahead of the curve on agents, automations, the fundamentals of AI, then this is the spot to be. We make AI easy to understand here. We have a full N8N agent building course. We have a calendar with a bunch of live calls, and of course, the lovely members that make up this community. We just dropped this course about 20 hours ago, and people are loving it. Anthony here says this community is a gold mine for anyone who finds it. Best investment of 2025. John here agrees with Anthony. This community is truly a gold mine for anyone who finds it, and it's true. It's kind of a hole-in-the-wall community. We've got 580 members. We'd love to see you inside. I'll leave a link to join below. So once you create your N8N workspace on the cloud, you're going to be at a screen something like this, except you probably won't have all of these different automations in here. This is basically like your home page, and here you can see workflows, credentials, and executions. Credentials are things like your API keys and your account access that you give within your automations. And executions are actually the running of your agentic workflows. So whenever you hit run, it tracks it as an execution or test step, or whenever it runs through, then it's an execution. You have your domain, which is the workspace that gets created for you upon creating an account. And then your workflows over here are organized into projects over on the left. So I could select into specific projects, and I have different workflows, different automations within each one, as you can see. In order to create a workflow, it's very simple. All you have to do is in the upper right-hand corner, hit this orange button that says Create a Workflow, and then you are going to be within the Editor UI. What you can also do is select a specific project and hit Create Workflow if you want this workflow to be within a specific project. Now that you're in your project workflow, what you want to do is understand the node types before building AI agents within N8N. N8N comes with different node types. Now, personally, I like putting node types into 5 different categories. Now, nodes are anything that you put out here on the screen. So I could have a node that starts on a chat message. Okay, so anytime I chat, this automation will start. This would be an example of one of those 5 node categories. So the 5 node categories in N8N are triggers. These are the nodes that start your automations. And this determines where, when, and how your agentic framework will begin. We then have action nodes. So these nodes allow you to do something within an app or a service. For example, Google Sheets, Airtable, Notion, WhatsApp, Telegram. You could import Gmail, Outlook. These are your action nodes. You have thousands of different actions you can take between all of the apps and services available to you on N8N. Next, we have utility nodes. These are those little boxes that will be able to transform your data. Things like if statements, filters, data conversion tools, data storing tools. These tools are native to N8N, and they can help you organize, modify, or send data elsewhere. We also have code nodes. So you can run code, make HTTP requests, set webhooks, JavaScript, and more. Now this takes your agent to the next level. We also have the advanced AI agent node, and this is what makes your agent autonomous. This is what turns your workflow into an agent within your agentic system. You can add search and retrieval functionality, store memory, start large language model chains, perform sentiment analysis, and so much more. So these are the 5 node categories, and pretty much anytime you add in a new part of your workflow, you can kind of think within these types of categories. Now, when you are beginning an automation, you always start with a trigger, so that's what we need to go do now. So the cool thing about the trigger nodes is you can do multiple. You don't just have to have one way you start an automation. You can have 10 different ways you start an automation if you would like, but we need to add our first step. And what you're going to notice is when we do add our first step, it automatically asks us what triggers your workflow. This is the where, what, when, how of your automation, the interrogative of your automation. So what we can do for simplicity is we could just do on a chat message. There's multiple different node types you can select from, especially when you get into on-app events. You know, within these applications, you can start automations on certain events happening. If we go to Google Drive, for example, you could start an automation on a specific file change or when changes involve in a specific folder. So there's different ways to start your automation, but for now we can just do on a chat message. I'm going to make this chat publicly available, and this is whether the chat should be publicly available or only accessible through the manual chat interface. For now, we can just make this publicly available, and we can have this test URL right here. I'm going to delete the initial messages, and this is just preliminary stuff. This is kind of cool. You have the ability to change this from hosted chat to embedded chat, which is kind of nice. I'm going to go back to Canvas. And now we have our first node in here, which is great. We have our first trigger. And this lightning bolt right here is signaling, hey, this is what's starting the automation. And what you will notice is at the bottom of the screen, we have a chat button. So when we select this chat button, we can type in anything we want, which is cool. And this is how we're going to be communicating with our automation for the sake of this tutorial. This is actually a very useful node to have. Let's add our next node in here. And in order to get this started, I like just adding the AI agent node. So I'm going to open the nodes panel, and then I'm going to go to advanced AI, and then I'm going to add the AI agent. And this is the secret sauce of N8N. This is what makes it so amazing. So we can leave everything the same right now because right now the prompt or the user message is just looking at this previous chat node. So this is like the brain of your workflow, your automation, or your agentic system. There's so many things that we can do from this AI agent node. We could even just talk to it like it's ChatGPT, and we could have our own version of ChatGPT within N8N. Let me show you an example. Now, in order to power this AI agent node, you always are going to need to add a chat model. You need something to power the brain, right? You need something pumping blood to the brain. So we can just use a chat model, and I'm just going to do the OpenAI chat model. You can select a model in here, and they've got all of the OpenAI models, which is very cool. I'll just do GPT-4o, and then I'll click out of here. But there's so many different models you can select. It doesn't just have to be this ChatGPT model. You can select Anthropic, AWS Bedrock, Grok, a llama. I mean, there's so many different things in here you can select from, but I like keeping it simple. I've already got my API key connected with OpenAI, and I'm just going to power it with a chat model. Now, chances are you might not have your credentials connected to ChatGPT in order to do this, or whatever application you want to use in order to power your AI agent. So if that's the case, what you can do is go to platform.openai.com, and then you can go to the settings button right here. And within the settings button, what you can do is go to API keys. And this is the screen that you want to create a new secret key. And once you create a secret key, it'll take about 30 seconds to create one. And once you do, you copy your secret key, you come back here, and you have the ability to create a new credential and just paste it in right here. And then you're all hooked up. It's that simple. You can load up $5 to $10 in your OpenAI account, and it will be plenty for testing purposes. So once you have a model connected to your agent and you have a way to start your automation, for example, right now we're chatting with this agent in order to begin this automation process. What you can do is you could just talk to this thing like it's ChatGPT or any other large language model. So I could ask it, hey, how are you? And then I could send it off. And now it's just using ChatGPT, and it brings me a response. It says, hello, I'm here and ready to help. How can I assist you today? But the problem is right now, this AI agent can only understand this query, and then it doesn't maintain any previous context in the chat. So in order to fix that, we need to add memory so that it can understand what was previously said so that we can actually have a conversation with it, and it can use our conversation as context in order to help us. For example, without memory, things like this happen. I can say, continue the sequence for me each time I reply, 1, 2, 3, and then I'll put ... So it should say 4, 5, 6. So if I send that off, what it will do is say 4, and maybe it's just going to go one number at a time. So if I copy it and I go 5, what it's going to do is not understand the previous context. So it's not going to keep on going. It just says my message looks like it's incomplete. But if it had memory, it would be able to do this. So we can add temporary memory to this chat by selecting this memory plus icon and then selecting window buffer memory. This stores memory in N8N. There's no credentials required. It's the easiest way to go. So here's your context window length, and this is how many past interactions the model receives as context. For now, it's connected from the chat node, so it already has our session key stored from this. Usually with this memory, what you need to do is you need to map a specific ID. So if you connect something like Telegram, if you connect something like WhatsApp, you need to store that chat ID right here so it knows where to pull context from. But right now, it's mapped it for us from this node right here. That's great. So now if we try this again and we say continue the sequence for me each time I reply, remember we have a window buffer memory of 5 now. I can save this, and then if I paste that in here and we go through this, it will say 4. And when I type out 5 this time, it will keep on going in the sequence because it remembers the past conversations because we gave it that context window to do so. So now we can have full conversations with it. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's what window buffer memory does. And you don't just have to use it with this chat node, but you could use it with other nodes as well. Now that we know we can chat with this thing, how about we start making it a little bit more powerful? Let's add our first tool to this AI agent. Now, when we add a tool, the AI agent is going to be able to decide, should I use this tool or not, depending on what I say from the messages. So whatever I type in, it's going to determine whether it needs to use that tool or not. So what we can do is we can hit this little plus button underneath tool. And within these tools, we can do some pretty cool things. We can call other workflows. So right now we are in an N8N workflow. We could add an entirely new workflow as a tool. We could write code, make an HTTP request. We could call all sorts of vector stores. And then we could use other tools as well. Like we could add Gmail, Google Calendar. We could give it a calculator. Wikipedia, so it can search Wikipedia, WooCommerce, Wolfram, Slack, so many different tools that we can use. But for now, what I want to do is I want to select Airtable. Let's say we have a home inventory where we have all of our grocery items, our household items, all in a list with an order threshold so that we know when we need to order more. I'm going to select Airtable, and what we can actually do is we can search Airtable databases within this tool right here. So if I click into this tool, as you can see, we have a lot of different options here that we are going to get to, but I want to point your attention to operation, because within this Airtable tool, we can do so many cool things. We can create records, we can update them, delete records, get records, and we can search records, which is what we want to do right now. So I'm going to select search, and now this will be ready, but first I want to show you the database. So here's my home inventory database. Now, if you're not familiar with Airtable, it's like Google Sheets on steroids. You can run automations very easily. You have the ability to view your data in multiple different ways. It's like if Google Sheets and Notion had a baby, you would get Airtable here. But as you can see, I just have some item names like toilet paper, shampoo, hand soap, toothpaste, trash bags, Ziploc bags. So it's basically like an entire home inventory. We even have some food items down here. We have the current quantity, like how much we currently have of that specific item. And then we have inventory threshold. So when it gets to that level, we know that we need to order more. So if we get only 4 sodas left, let's just say, then I guess we need to order more soda. Or if trash bags, if we get down to 3 boxes of trash bags left, then we need to order more in order to increase that quantity. So this is our database that we're going to be giving N8N access to, so that this AI agent, when we're talking with it, can actually use this tool. So what we can do is within Airtable here, we can just go down and hit create new credential. And here we need to give an access token with the following scopes. In the Airtable Builder Hub, you can create personal access tokens. I'm going to hit create new token, and I'm going to give it a name of test, home, inventory. I'm going to add some scopes. And this is basically just saying, what can N8N be allowed to do? Well, we want it to be able to read the data. We want it to be able to write in the data. And we also want it to be able to read our database structure and see things like table names and field types. So we can select schema basis read. And now we need to give it access to that home inventory base. We need to give it access to this. So we can hit add a base and then scroll down to home inventory test and select that. And now we can hit create token. We're then given a secret access token that you will only be able to see once. So when you hit copy, make sure you store this in a safe place where nobody else can see it. And now we can go connect our credential back in N8N. So I can paste in that access token, and then we can hit save. And now our Airtable connection has been tested successfully. So now it has access with those parameters to our Airtable database. Beautiful. So now we need to give a tool description. This is going to describe what this tool is. Now, anytime you add a new tool to your AI agent, you want to let your AI agent know, hey, this is what's going on with this tool. And that's what the tool description is for. So we're going to set this manually, and we can just say searches, home, inventory, in Airtable. So we're kind of giving it these words like home inventory, Airtable, so that it knows that if I ask about my home inventory, that it can search it within this Airtable tool node. You kind of have to be specific within the description. You want to explain to the LLM what this tool does. A good specific description would allow the large language model to produce expected results more often. That's the idea of it. Now we can keep the resource on record. Operation is search because we want to search our database. And then we can select our base down here. So I can select home inventory, and then we can select our table as well. So I'm going to select table, and then I'm going to do the goods. The table is within home inventory because you can create multiple tables within a certain base. We don't need any filter, and we can just return all. That is fine. So now this is ready to go. So now I could have a conversation about my database because it's now connected as a tool. So before, we could just talk to it like it was ChatGPT. We could still talk to it like it was ChatGPT. I could ask it to give me 20 facts about Paris. I could ask it to create me a business plan. I could do whatever, but now it has access to a tool that knows deeper information about me. So now it's acting in that more agentic type way. So I'm going to save this automation, and then I'm going to test it out. Let's ask it questions about my home inventory. First of all, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make something out of stock. So I'm going to make butter out of stock. I'm going to say inventory, the current quantity I have is 0. Now that we have that as 0, we could ask a question like, hey, is anything out of stock within my home inventory? I don't even have to say home inventory. The AI agent is really good at picking up on context, even without any instructions. I could say, is anything out of stock in my house? And I could send that off. And as you can see, it's searching our Airtable for us and then returning back to me what's out of stock. It says currently you are out of stock on the following item in your house. Butter, current quantity 0. And if you remember, that's the only thing that we changed to set as 0 within our database. I could ask, is anything getting close to the order threshold? And I could send that off to see if we're getting close to needing to order anything again. And it will search my database, search my home inventory that we just added as a tool, and then it gives me everything I need right here. It's even pulling in the record ID, kind of weird, but these are things we could adjust with instructions. It says glass cleaner, aluminum foil, mouthwash, and honey are all getting close to their order threshold. So what you're going to notice is that this AI agent, I'm having a conversation with it about things that it didn't previously know. It didn't have these items as context within the conversation. And since it doesn't, it uses my tools in order to go find those items and then bring them back into the conversation. So this is great. We now are searching our own database, having a conversation about it. How about we add another tool? Let's get into adding a tool where we can actually update these records. Right now, all we can do is search our database. What happens if we wanted to update something? Maybe we bought something, we were on the go. We say to our chatbot, we can eventually hook up voice to it and connect it to our iPhones or our Androids. And we could have a conversation with this chatbot. So in the future, maybe I'm out shopping and I'm saying, hey, I just picked up 2 more boxes of pasta, my laundry detergent. I just picked up X, Y, and Z. This agent needs to be able to not only search the records in order to find the record ID that needs updated, which it will do, but it also needs to be able to update those records. So we can just add another Airtable tool. I'm going to hit this plus button under Tool, and then I'm going to scroll down and select Airtable. Here, it's this very similar process. We already have our credential with Airtable connected, so we don't have to do that again. But what we can do is set a tool description. And this tool description needs to be a very accurate description of what this tool does. I can say updates inventory items from my Airtable. Beautiful. Now we can leave it to record, and we need to change operation from get to update. And after we have it on update, we need to select our base once again, which is the home inventory. And then we need to select our list, which is the goods. And now we have a couple of fields that we can update if we want to. So this is where the fun part happens, because how does AI know what to put within these fields? Well, it really doesn't until we message something, and the output's going to be different every single time. That's where N8N adds this awesome expression from AI. We have the ability to map a dynamic expression into each one of these fields and ask AI to fill it in for us based on the chat that we have with it in here. So based on our chat, it's going to fill in the fields for us without any instructions. Now, adding instructions really beefs it up, right? It makes it much more consistent. But ID is the ID of the record, the item name. Each item has its own ID, and the ID is found within the URL. So just like with any item, the same thing with your emails, the same thing with Notion, the same thing with pretty much anything that has multiple rows, records, tables, everything has an ID attached to it. So what we can do is we can use this expression. I copied it from up here, and we're basically asking AI to find the ID for us. So I'm going to make this an expression. A fixed field will allow for you to type in fixed data, while an expression allows for dynamic changing data. So now we can give this ID a name. We're telling AI to find it for us, and it goes in this order: key, description, type, and default value. They're all separated by commas, and each one needs to be put in quotes. So you're basically just defining your own key. What do you want to call this? Well, since we're updating records in Airtable, and we need to find the ID for that record, we could just name this something like record ID. And then we must give a solid description describing what this field is that we want pulled in. So this is the thing we want pulled in. Now let's describe what we want pulled in. We can put a comma and then 2 apostrophes or quotes. That would work as well. And I can say the Airtable ID of the item needing updated. So now it knows, okay, we need to find the item that needs updated, and we need to use that record ID. And now AI is going to find all that stuff for us. Again, we don't even have any instructions. We're just telling AI with key description values what we want it to do for us. And so now I can copy this expression and do the same thing for all of these fields that I want to edit. So let's say I just want to edit quantity. I don't really want to change item name. I don't even really care to change inventory threshold. Maybe I just want to be able to update the quantity of a specific item from my database. Maybe I go to the store and I buy something. I can delete those other fields. And then I can make an expression here. And within this expression, I can paste in that placeholder name again. And then I can say for the key, something like new quantity. And then I can delete this description that I currently have. And I can say the new quantity of the item being updated. Beautiful. Now what we need to do here is we need to describe what is the type of this value. Whenever we want a number being pulled into a field, we need to describe and tell it, hey, this is a number. So for type here, we're going to need to add another comma, 2 more apostrophes, and then we're going to need to put number. So it doesn't return a string value or text, but rather a number. And this is how to use the fromAI expression. It's very cool because AI is searching for these fields for us. We don't even have to worry about it. Look at this. This is awesome. So I can go back to Canvas now and we can actually try this out. You can rename your fields by right-clicking on them and then hitting rename, searches, inventory, or I can even just put search inventory. And then I can name this one update inventory. This is just for you to see. The AI doesn't see this. I'm going to clear my history real quick with this chat thread so we can start on something new. And then what I can do is I can say, I just bought 2 more things of toothpaste or 2 more tubes of toothpaste. Let's see what it does. I just bought 2 more tubes of toothpaste. Then I can say update my inventory and then I can send that off. And as you can see, what it's going to do is actually first to search my inventory and then go and update it because it understood. Okay, I've got to first search the inventory before I go and update it. And as you can see, toothpaste goes from 2 to 4. So we actually didn't need the instructions there and it figured it out itself. Now, oftentimes this will happen, right? It knows the tools it has to use, but sometimes it can be inconsistent, and that's where we need to start adding instructions for how we want this agent to act and how we want it to go through certain processes. But we could keep on having conversations about our inventory now. I could say, can you add 2 things of honey as well? And because it has memory, it can pick up on like what I'm talking about. So it knows that I just bought 2 more tubes of toothpaste and also probably 2 things of honey because it's going to use this as context with my prompt. So I can send that off and it will search my inventory to find that honey object and then also update my inventory. So now instead of 1 thing of honey, I should have 3 down here at the bottom. So I want you to take what you just learned and think about this entire process as one tool for your workflow. Because when you're dealing with multiple tasks and you're truly trying to create an agentic ecosystem, it's not all going to happen with one AI agent node like we just created. You're going to need to be able to learn how to create system instructions in order to classify specific tasks within areas of your life or areas of your business or areas of your work, and then call these little tools in order to help along the way. So you could look at this like, oh, this is an AI agent that has access to 2 tools. But what I like to look at this as is my inventory agent, my inventory tool. This can do everything I need within my home inventory, and it's one tool. Because what we have the ability to do is we can add a trigger to this, and then we can add this trigger when called by another workflow. And what's going to happen is when another workflow calls this AI agent, it can send the data or my user query to this input and then start running this AI agent. So it doesn't even have to start on a chat message, but rather when I chat to a different agent. And the way that happens in another workflow is by me adding a tool like this and then calling an N8N workflow. So you can actually give entire workflows to your agent to call. And once it calls it, it can execute an entire workflow like we just built. and then return the data back to the original workflow. So that's really where the power begins, is when you're calling other workflows with your agent based on your query. So whatever question you ask, maybe there's a better workflow for it, an entire workflow like this with a completely different AI agent node involved. And you can also chain these AI agent nodes together. And maybe you pass information through this one and say, you know what, this agent is better for the job. This has been a beginner's guide, an introduction to building AI agents within N8N. You're now up to speed on everything you need to know in order to go much further with creating these agentic ecosystems. So I hope you enjoyed this. Again, if you want to go deeper right now automatically, then I highly recommend joining our AI Foundations community, where you're going to be able to do so. We have a new N8N agent building course in here with 25 plus modules. And if I click in here, what you're going to see is we have all sorts of different modules going over things like retrieval augmented generation within N8N, how to set it up. We go over the node types more in depth and build out plenty of different automations in here. And we even have projects for you to complete so that you can really hammer in your skills with building agents. And we want you to learn with us because, listen, Carter and I, the two brothers that are running this community, we learn from the people within the community more than we probably teach them, right? The community is such a good spot to be. Everyone says like, okay, well, they finally found their group of people that thinks like them. And that's why I want to tell you about it, because when people join, they're automatically like, oh my gosh, this is a gold mine. How is this only $49 per month? But the fact of the matter is, what makes it a gold mine is the actual people in the community. And when we treat it like a community, that's when beautiful things happen. That's when we grow most and learn more and build more, is when we do things together with people from hundreds of different industries, right? All these different industries focused on one thing. And implementing AI is that big thing. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to see you in the community. Highly recommend it if you're into agent building. And I hope this was a good introduction for you. If you did enjoy, please like and subscribe. I would highly, highly appreciate it. All right, I'll see you in the next video.